Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege.
Yes, sir. We are live. This is your boy Chris Cross. This is the TC MMA podcast, and it seems like it's been forever since we've done a regular podcast. Now, we did a prediction show yesterday for UFC Denver, so make sure you don't miss episode 776. But today we get to talk about just general UFC topics, which is one of my favorite things to do, right? I love talking about the news in the UFC. So let's just go over some of the topics while we wait for people to get into the chat room. Khamzat Chimaev in the news. Since we spoke last, Khamzat Chimaev was accused of a crypto scam after his Smash token dived 94% in 24 hours. Wow. That's crazy. Khamzat's manager coming out and saying, maybe I was misled. You think? And then just days later, Khamzat Chimaev returns to training in the mountains as new footage shows him eyeing UFC return after his illness. So that's good news, you know. For a minute, all we had to talk about was a crypto scam. The alleged crypto scam, right? Because we don't even know how much Khamzat was involved in this thing. But somehow his name got put in there. We'll get back to that in a moment. Anthony Joshua, check this out. This is crazy. It's not crazy, but these things are happening. Anthony Joshua urges UFC's Alex Pereira to switch to boxing. Really? I mean, he's at the height of his game right now. Pereira saying it's always been a dream of his. Who do you think he should fight? Things of that nature. I just, you know, it's not going to go too far. You're going to get a couple fights, but that's about it. People are going to, you know, tune out after a while. Boxing is a dead sport that relies on big names switching from other sports like UFC or, you know, MMA as a whole into boxing. I mean, that's the only way it survives. Mark Goddard, referee, explains why he won't referee UFC champion Leon Edwards fights. And I was intrigued. I clicked on that article and was like, why won't he ref his fights? What's going on? So we'll discuss that. Another big topic, Dana White reveals why UFC called off done deal with HBO. We got to get out of this, he said. This dates back to 2007, which he detailed in an interview with Fox News. So we're going to cover that. Very interesting. Didn't even realize they were that close to a deal or had a done deal, really, with HBO at the time. Also, Israel Adesanya explains how taking a hiatus was definitely the best move for his UFC career. Was it? We'll break that down in a moment. Former UFC champion TJ Dillashaw pushed return rumors to rest, saying, I'm done, with a little bit of curse words in between. Kayla Harrison ready to get back to work as she awaits potential UFC women's bantamweight title shot, and a sneak peek to that. It doesn't seem like there's anyone in her way now. It doesn't seem like after who'd she beat, Holly Holm, I believe, there's no one in her way. I mean, the division is wide open right now, especially with Amanda Nunes being gone. Kayla Harrison came over at the right time. So those are some of the topics that are happening in the UFC. Of course, there's a lot more. Matthew 225 in the chat room already say Khamzat is back, question mark. Yeah, Khamzat seems to be back. You know, the word is he's back to training. Put out footage of him training in the mountains, right? But this is right after the alleged crypto scam, and I think they're just trying to change the narrative, which is very smart from a PR perspective. Let's change the narrative, right? Because he was caught up in that alleged crypto scam last week, and then I read another article where Khamzat's manager was saying maybe I was misled, you know, speaking of himself. So I don't even know how much Khamzat was really involved in that, you know. Of course, we're getting conflicting reports on that, but the bottom line is it seems like that's starting to pass. Whatever happened there is a shame, especially for the Smash token, which lost 94% of its value in 24 hours. So obviously some insiders were pumping that thing up and then just put it in the wind after that. So Khamzat's manager saying maybe I was misled. But yeah, listen, the bottom line is if Khamzat is training again, which it seems like he is, or they're just trying to change the narrative, I don't care which one it is, really. We just need Khamzat to start focusing on fights now, you know. As you know, I'm a big fan of Conor McGregor and Khamzat, and I'm just getting sick of all the games. I know McGregor really wants to get in the octagon, and that's another story today if you combine the two, because Michael Chandler's saying, hey, why don't I just fight Nate Diaz instead of McGregor? Or at least, you know, I could fight Nate Diaz and still fight McGregor by the time he's willing to fight, right? Not in so, you know, not in so many words, but that's kind of what he's alluding to, and he's probably not wrong. You know, both these guys cannot seem to find the octagon if it was right in front of them. But at the same time, I don't get on either of them because I know they both want to fight. I know Khamzat was ill. I know McGregor had an injury. I know there's question marks about both of those guys retiring. I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen. They'll both be back, right? They're just going through some hoops and hurdles right now. Khamzat's definitely coming back. McGregor, you know, it's really McGregor against himself, right? He has enough money. He's not fighting for the money. He's also, much like Khamzat now, is not fighting constantly like he did earlier in his career. And see, that's what makes you good, right? Constantly, you know, in and out of training camp, fight, a little bit of time off, back into training camp. You're constantly fighting. And when that gets broken, man, it's rough. I know when I played college football and, you know, the first 2 years I was good to go, man. I was at the top of my game and then I got injured. And it's hard. You know, you miss a season, then you get back to the working out. It seems like the next season is forever away. And then you're talking 2 years for one injury. And you really start to question, like, is this really what I want to do? You know, the difference for these two is there's a lot of money at stake. So that helps the motivation too. But it is hard to get back in the swing of things when you're not in your normal rhythm. So we got to continue watching these two to see what's going to happen, you know, because both of them are out of their normal rhythm right now. Michelin, I believe is what it says. I'm new to the MMA world. I'm happy to know more about this sport. Yeah, there's a lot to know. And I'll tell you what, I've been watching now about 7 years. And the more you watch, you pick it up quick. What I realize is that I now know 10, 15 guys deep in every division. Growing up as a boxing fan, I never even knew who the third guy was in a division. So you pick things up very quickly. The fighters fight, it seems to be every 3 to 5 months. So you constantly are hearing the same names. Despite there being 300-400 people in the UFC, you start to learn the names. You start to see some newcomers that might rise. It's just very interesting. Great sport. So stick with it. Even if I didn't tell you that, I'm sure you would because it gets more and more exciting as you go forward. Matthew 225, I heard something about, and I can't see because there's something in the way, but about UFC 300 something for McGregor. You know, and the thing is with McGregor, right, is as we read some of the messages in the chat room related to this topic, is they're all rumors, right, until they're not. And the thing is everyone gets excited for the rumors, and then it doesn't pan out, and it kind of, people get upset with McGregor. Even though he's sitting back chilling, not even probably part of most of these rumors. There's some rumors he throws himself into, right? He injects himself. But the bottom line is most of these rumors are just that. They're just rumors. Until we hear an official signing, which Dana White is not going to do till he knows McGregor's ready. He's not going to do it now with Khamzat till he knows Khamzat is ready. He's already dealt with the missed weight. He's dealt with him having to miss for COVID. He's dealt with him now having to miss for an illness, right? So you have 3 fights. As much as I love Khamzat, and this isn't me getting on him, these are just facts. He missed Leon Edwards with COVID, right? He missed weight against Nate Diaz. That's becoming a bigger thing now because of all the other mishaps. And then he had to pull out against Robert Whittaker. Okay, and then he had 2 rough fights against Usman and Edwards, or Burns. Now, I went back and watched the Burns fight this past weekend, and really on both guys' part, what a great fight, man. I know at the time I was so nervous I couldn't enjoy it, especially in the third round because you really didn't know how the decision was going to go. I mean, it was that close. What a great fight by both those guys. So I don't look at that as a bad fight. The Usman fight was just you're fighting one of the best in the world that just so happened to lose his last fight, but still one of the best fighters in the world. So Khamzat didn't go out there and dominate. He did in the first round until he got hurt. But, so he's dealing with those two fights. He's dealing with the other three mishaps. There's a lot of people turning against Khamzat right now, and he needs a fight and come back and then just dominate somebody, to start changing the storyline. But that's where that's at right now. Feel free to put your comments in the chat room. We'll read more and circle back if we can, if you want us to. Anthony Joshua urged Alex Pereira to switch to boxing. Oh, I'm getting so tired of these topics. Like, who cares about boxing? Now, oddly enough, when these guys go to boxing, they're probably getting more money because boxing is basically ceased to exist as far as in the mainstream news. And one of the, when you get Nate Diaz and Masvidal go over there, right? Those are the names. It's not boxing. Everyone's not tuning in for boxing. They're tuning in because it's Nate Diaz, because it's Masvidal, because it was Conor McGregor, right? So they're trying to use UFC fighters to keep the sport alive because nobody really cares. Nobody really cares. They'll pay to see the UFC guys fight. Let me see if one of these guys could whoop Jake Paul. Right? Diaz, Masvidal, I'll take that too. 2-piece and a soda or whatever. Yeah, I'll take that too. But it's all because of the names. It's not because of boxing. Boxing is done, man. And the quicker they get over this, the better off we'll be. Mark Goddard, UFC referee, explains why he won't referee UFC champion Leon Edwards fights. I saw this and I'm like, what has he got against Edwards? Like, what's the problem here? Is it too difficult to ref his fights? Does he grab the cage too much? What is going on? Leon Edwards, Goddard said on Mike Perry's Overdogs podcast, "You've never saw me referee Leon Edwards in the UFC and you never will. Why? Because I was Leon Edwards' first coach in MMA. What? Way, way, way back when he was just an amateur. But again, the common sense element for me, like I said, even though the link is so, who knew then when Leon first walked into the gym as a raw amateur, a raw novice with no experience. Now look at him, UFC welterweight champion of the world. So it turns out that Mark Goddard actually used to coach Leon Edwards at the very beginning, and that's enough for there to be a conflict of interest, right? So Mark Goddard can never referee Leon Edwards fights. Now, it's not like if we watch Leon Edwards fight, we would say, wait, hey, why is Mark Goddard never in there, right? He's just coming out and saying, I can't referee his fights because I used to coach him. And God forbid there's a close call or controversial call, everyone's is gonna go back to that and say, hey, he favors Edwards. He used to be his coach. You can't win in this situation, so yeah, he'll never referee Leon Edwards fights, but it's for a good reason. Absolutely. Another story that I was really interested in a few days ago, and again, we haven't talked in a few days on the podcast, so I wanted to bring up some of these stories that may have been a few days old. It's all good. Dana White reveals why UFC called off done deal with HBO. We got to get out of this. Now remember, HBO and Showtime, I guess, was all in for boxing. But boxing lost steam, right? Maybe for the way it was portrayed, maybe because they put the fighter above the sport, a Mike Tyson, a George Foreman, an Evander Holyfield, a Lennox Lewis. It's the name, then boxing, then the sport. And when those names start to fade away, you have nothing left, right? And the UFC is being very careful to do this. And it also comes down to production, right? Dana White saying we did a deal, and he's telling this to Fox News in an interview. We did a deal with HBO. We were going to put fights on HBO. HBO came and started going, we're going to have to turn this music down. This is going to have to do this. And Dana White's like, no. You guys are not running our production and telling us what to do. And see, again, if Dana White's not around, when he's not around, everything is going to turn to money, and that's my big fear. So I think we're living in the glory days right now, and it will still get pumped up after he leaves because they'll go after the money. But if they start promoting these fighters solely over the sport. And for me as a fan, what that means is, do I just know the best fighter and I don't know who's down at 5th, 6th, or 7th? Because right now I do. If I just know who Adesanya is and Adesanya loses and then Dricus du Plessis comes in, then he loses to somebody and then that person loses. And next you know, you're 3, 4 fighters down. You don't know who this person is. You have nothing left. But see, right now, because of Dana White, we are UFC fans. We're not just Mike Tyson fans or Evander Holyfield fans or Lennox. We are a fan of the sport. So regardless of who comes in and out, right now, the sport is promoted at the highest level, so we're watching. But you let HBO get in there and start messing up your production. Not that HBO doesn't know what they're doing, but you look at boxing. I mean, there's fights when you go from the second to last fight to the main event, that there's an hour and a half between the fight. It's like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, let's go. The UFC, the fight's over. You got a 5 to 10 minute intro, and boom, the fighters are coming out. And the music's loud and pumping. We love it, man. We love the way that it is. The UFC is perfect in terms of production. So you look back and say, hey, we could have never seen this level of production if HBO would have got involved. Luckily for us, the UFC says, hey, we do our production and we license it out. It would be like Spotify coming in and telling Joe Rogan that, hey, you can't interview this person or do the interview like this. You need to start doing them like this. Well, then you're going to change the show, or the sport in this case, and you're probably going to mess up something that people love, and it's going to cause them to stop tuning in as much. So it's a good thing that the UFC turned the corner there. But again, Dana White is like that rock solid wall that's holding everything together or holding everything back, however you want to look at it. And when he leaves, it's going to be a problem, because everyone's going to be fighting to take that thing over. Now, Israel Adesanya explains how taking a hiatus was definitely the best move for his UFC career. I've got more patience now, more clarity. And a lot of guys, I say, hey, they need to keep fighting. But Adesanya's been around so long and in so many good and grueling fights that maybe the hiatus was good for him, because you know that he's still on some level constantly training. It's not like he just didn't do anything for 2 months or 4 months. He's still training, taking some time off, a little bit of training, time off. You know what I mean? But for him to get back into fight shape is not going to be a big deal at all. So he's probably in a good headspace, you know, and the only thing I can relate to it in terms of us doing, you know, the podcast and videos and things like that, it's like we get burnt out when you're going 6 to 8 weeks in a row, sometimes 10. And then you get that week off. Like this past week, we had a week off, man. I didn't want to hardly do any videos. I wanted to lay back on the couch. I didn't want to do anything. And then you get the week off, and it's like today I'm feeling it. Like I'm out working. I'm like, hey, I need to get home, and there's all these stories I need to get off my chest. You know, so you're ready to go. Like you're more eager when you get a little bit of a break. So I know Adesanya is going to come in more eager than ever. And I don't know if he's going to beat du Plessis, but I'm telling you right now, that's going to be a good fight, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be a fight you don't want to miss. Former UFC champion TJ Dillashaw puts return rumors to rest, saying, I'm effing done, man. And this just sounds like, I don't even know what's going on with TJ Dillashaw, but it sounds like a tantrum. Like, it's like, dude, just get in there and fight somebody. Like, you had to sit out a year or two or however long it was for the previous mishap. You're back. You're getting into the fight, you know, swing at things once again, and now you're like, I'm done. Like, there's too much drama with these guys. And what they got to realize is the UFC just keeps marching forward, baby. It just keeps moving forward. It's not waiting on no man, right? At one point, we thought when McGregor stopped fighting, this sport could be in trouble. But you see, the sport marched on and got bigger since 2016 when McGregor was at his prime, maybe 2018. It just got bigger. COVID hit, it just got bigger. Because it goes back to what I previously said. It's not about the fighter. The sport is promoting itself. And this is why when the UFC fighters are constantly complaining about fighter pay and all this stuff, it's like the sport, it's not that they don't want to pay you. There's a contract, first of all. But the bottom line is you got to fight for what you want. You're an individual and got to sign those contracts. The UFC is trying to promote the sport, is not trying to put one guy on a pedestal, because when that guy's gone, the sport will crumble. Dana White knows that. He's a master class at promotion. marketing, all that. Kayla Harrison. You guys remember Kayla Harrison came over to the UFC? I told you Holly Holm was going to beat her. Well, Kayla Harrison won, and now I'm a believer. And when you look at this division with Rockwell Pennington, you know, who, to me, the division is wide open. I don't know, like a Michael Chandler or anyone else, if Kayla Harrison would actually MVP Michael Venom Page. I don't know if Kayla Harrison would come over and win the title, but right now, it's the perfect time to get the title. I think if she fought Pennington today, she dominates her. You know? Now we'll see what Pennington does in her next fight, but if Pennington wins that fight, Kayla Harrison dominates her for the title. Without Amanda Nunes here, things are wide open now in that division. It's very, very interesting. I mean, that division is wide open. Yeah. Matthew 225 saying EPO Dillashaw. Yeah, I know. I hear you. And now he's finally past that, and now he's like, I'm effing done. It's like, dude, you just got back. I know it's been a year or two, but you just got back. Now you're done? Like, I mean, it's drama, man. It's just straight drama. Yeah, so Matthew 225 saying UFC 305 for McGregor. So who do we got? Now, I don't think that's going to happen because you already got Adesanya and Duplessis at the top of the ticket. That's the main event. McGregor's not coming back for no co-main event. So I'd say that's almost not going to happen. You know, I don't want to say never, but that's not going to happen. I really thought something would happen at the Sphere. Like, you already got but then it's Noche UFC, right? So there's going to be a lot of Mexican fighters, right? So I don't know, you know, how McGregor would fit into that, but you put him in the Sphere, that would be crazy. But see, they don't need McGregor they don't need McGregor at 300 because it's already 300. Everyone's watching regardless. You don't need McGregor at the Sphere because it's the Sphere. Everyone's going to watch anyway. So they're going to save McGregor now for another 3 or 4 months because it's not about McGregor fighting for titles, although I still think he could make a run if he really got back and in a rhythm. It's about McGregor making money, right, for both himself and the UFC. So the UFC is going to put him in a place where it wouldn't normally sell, and he can just come in. The Sphere is going to sell out. Everybody's going to be watching anyway because it's like, oh, the Sphere, I want to see. I mean, I'm going to watch. I'll watch anyway, but I'm definitely watching because I want to see what it's going to look like and how they're going to set this thing up and the production and all that. So you don't need McGregor for that. So I don't see him fighting at 305 or 306, and now you're getting into October, and it's crazy. JK9 says forehead reveal. I hear. Says, I love the way you speak. You can yap for 1,000 hours and I'll watch. Sometimes it's just that. These are my favorite episodes. Like when we're doing the predictions, I'm trying to stay focused on those fights. But when you just open it up to UFC news, and especially really, I got to be honest, when you guys get involved in the chat room, it really helps the show. Because right now I get to a point where like I'm done saying what I'm saying. So if there's nothing going on, I'm wrapping the show up. You guys start getting involved in the chat room, it extends the show every time. Do you think Poatan versus John Jones fight is going to happen? So there's a lot of talk with John Jones. If I'm Alex Pereira, just like it was either DC or what's his name said, the time is now for Alex Pereira, and I read that the other day. I totally 100% agree. The time is now. You got to go for it. But what happens if Tom Aspinall walks in and just drops Curtis Blades? People are going to be going crazy, including myself, and saying, hey, John Jones don't need to fight Stipe, because this is the same thing he did in the light heavyweight division, right? Ties up the division. Now, it just so happens he got hurt. Not his fault, okay? But he got hurt, so that's another 6 to 9 months, right? He's going to hold on to the belt. Then he's going to fight Stipe, who hasn't fought since when? 4 or 5 years, it seems like. He's going to dominate him. Then it's going to be another 6 months to a year. Hopefully nothing else happens before he even fights Tom Aspinall. So he don't want to fight Alex Pereira. You would think John Jones would want, I mean, he's already the heavyweight champ. He was a light heavyweight champ, right? But if he fights Alex Pereira and Alex Pereira wins, that's going to tarnish John Jones's legacy. And I know Dana White's not going to stop that fight because of that, but Dana White's well aware of that too. And I think what you're going to see with the way John Jones gets down is Pereira's going to be 39 or 40 before that happens. And you say, no, no, no. He's already about to hit 37. Okay, so if you look at Stipe, then Aspinall, okay, then Alex Pereira, and then say one other thing happens in there, you're looking at 2 to 3 years. So what's Alex Pereira supposed to do? Because John Jones has waited out other people before. Look at Francis Ngannou, look at others. He'll wait it out and then take the easiest path. And I'm not saying that he couldn't beat these guys anyway. I'm just saying John Jones isn't in a hurry to fight the best person in the world, or else he'd be fighting Ngannou and Pereira regardless of the money, right? I mean, you want the money. The UFC's going to pay you anyway, but you're really holding up fights because of the money and because of the legacy. You're not going to fight the best. That bothers me. That bothers me a lot. You know. So, yeah. JK9 saying it's Riyadh season, Noche UFC. Arabs run this now, yes. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's wild when you look at the UFC too, because you got the Brazilians who are just it seems like every fight there's a Brazilian in it. You got the UFC going into Muslim territory now, doing fights. Some of the best fighters in the world, right? My favorite fighter, Khamzat Chimaev, is Muslim. I mean, love the guy. And even when some of these others fight, the Dagestani fighters, the fighters in that part of the world, man, they're really solid. They're really good. That's the best part of the UFC, is just seeing all these people from different parts of the world go at it, man. I heard rumors that Ankalaev and Poatan for UFC 308 Abu Dhabi. Yeah, and I hope that Hamza's on one of these cards too. You know, UFC 308 or UFC, is it Abu Dhabi or so, wherever there's a fight night coming up. I don't know if Hamza will make that one, but he needs to get back in there, but he can't get a visa. I mean, him and McGregor are just all kinds of problems. It's a shame. It's a shame. But listen, that's the news, man. We're glad to bring it to you. We may or may not be back for another episode this week. Usually we get one in tomorrow, so likely we'll be here tomorrow. Got a couple predictions still left to do for UFC Denver. And the week off is over, and July is now in full swing. And after June, I'm thankful that July is here. We get some consistency, baby. But listen, this is your boy Chris Cross. I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great day. And God bless. As always, peace.